Welcome to the channel. This is where we work with the subtle energies of intuition to help us all move towards improved well-being. And I was lucky enough to be mentored by Hamish Miller, author, Earth Mysteries researcher, philanthropist and one-time broadcaster. Here he is then, in a lecture held at and recorded by Plymouth University. Hamish Miller, The Earth is Listening.
And there are 4 or 5 different marais, and the places up the top were the big stones. I'll show you them in a minute. Which you after years of teaching, you manage to get up to the sort of top level up here. That's the marae that we did some work on, and normally that area there is full of water, and this is where they collected the Punamu stone and they put it in there, and it stayed there for a year. And then the women picked the stones up and took them down, and it's the peace stone. They were sent all over the country, and in fact, we believe all over the world. That's the sort of, this is limestone. And as you know, limestone was built from creatures. So we can come from the stone. These are made from creatures. You can almost see them recreating their own version. They're completely organic, and there are elephants and all sorts of things. Now, while we were there, I went down into that marae and I dowsed it, and there were 5 powerful energy lines coming into the marae. And I couldn't find any manifestation at all. I was really astonished. And this Maori girl was with the group, and the group that were weaving around at the time. We weren't actually in the group. And she waited till everybody was gone, and she suddenly produced the Punamu stone from her backpack, and she went it very carefully into the centre of the marae. The man came in from absolutely nowhere. I'm not creating a mystery here, but he just suddenly appeared, and they honoured and greeted each other, and then he disappeared, and she sang to the earth in the middle of carrying the stone, sang to the earth. And she finally beckoned 4 other women. Bar was one of them, was a German, a New Zealander, I think, and an American. And she gave another ceremony, and she sang again to the earth. And I heard about this. I wasn't there. I heard about this and I went up the next day to douse. And in the dust, if it had been, it would have been very difficult. It was in the water. But there was a manifestation obviously there. The rod started to move around. It's 16 feet down, so it's very complex. And it took me about 45 minutes to dowse it. And I ended up precisely where I had started, with a shape like that. Now, I defy anybody to do that and not be guided in some way, because you can't possibly have that sort of thing and mark it out in the sand and end up in the right place. You can't contrive that. And can you see this is the old dog road. Extraordinary development but they weren't going back in the same way as they were going back in this country with the direct connections, because we went back to One Tree Hill. And the week after, we had that manifestation, which is very similar, but it's not the same. So there must be some sort of contact somehow, but I haven't worked it all out yet. And then One Tree Hill the following year had changed to, this is what's so exciting about New Zealand. I mean, that changes within a year. It took 10 years working from the Son of the Serpent for a manifestation to change fundamentally. This happened in 1 year. There's always some little anomaly, and I don't know, an odd thing. I don't know whether it's my dowsing or whether it's that I'm not tuned into the particular New Zealand energy, or that the Earth is not quite sure about how it's relating to what I'm doing or whatever. I don't know, but there are always some odd bits and pieces. And we went back to Mangarui Bluff, that first slide that I showed you, that wonderful beach going along to it. And far from the old dog bone, we got this very, very precise manifestation. Still the 3 lines coming in, but this is very accurate. We have to do it very tight stringed and mark it and peg it out and then measure it out. Now back to the Castle Hill. These are the ones at the top of the hill. This is Marotini. She is in charge of the whole lot. She is something like 120 feet high. I mean, she's a monster. And this is Rakai Pautu, who is the embodiment of the ancient navigator who brought the original wakas across to New Zealand. This is the recognised leader or navigator. And he's sitting there on his chair, looking out, waiting for the next waka coming. Now, one of the legends is that Rakai Pautu, before he died, caused a stone to be placed somewhere on the top of this hill. And we think that it's that one. It looks quite tiny, but it's not. And it's exactly halfway between Marotini and Rakai Pautu. And it is an extraordinary... That's Marotini, huge. You can't get the scale here, but it's just a monster. And that's Rakai Pautu, sitting there. You can see him sitting in his chair looking up for the waka coming back. And that's the extraordinary stone that he caused, I think, he caused to be placed there. It's an extraordinary head, and if you were standing up, you would be about that high. You can actually stand under his chin. He's huge. And underneath him, there's a little, almost a cave. So he's been, I think he was placed there. And don't tell me how, but you know, when you get the sort of legend that happens and how people can move stones, I can begin to understand, because these people have immense knowledge. And around the great head, there was this. They had 42 radials, and we had, how many did we have here? 10. It had 42 with a sort of pie cross formation on it. Completely different this year, much more sophisticated. But I only, you know, I would have been back 10 days. I haven't had time to draw them out yet. So none of the stuff we did earlier this year is here at all. Now the final thing in Castle Hill was this manifestation here, and it's developed from the single 12 with the dog board into a double. And I began to despair, and there's 12 instead of 9. The 12 factor coming in again. I was beginning to get to the stage of wondering whether I was completely off the wall, and I was also trying to interpret what these things meant. And it's very, very difficult to dowse without influencing your dowsing, to think about that without influencing your dowsing. And actually we had a friend there who was a sensitive, and she was completely knocked out by the place there, and she came over and she said, I'd never do this, but I've got to sit in the centre here because I've got a message for you from the elders. And I sat with her, and she said, and they spoke through her, actually, must have done, said, tell this man that his work is just to record what is happening with these manifestations. He must not try to interpret what they are, otherwise it will influence his dowsing. This is from one of the elders. They said also that this man is not ready yet to do the real work. There are 7 different levels of manifestation here, and he's not ready to do the second one yet. So they cut me down to size, which is very good for me, actually. And the elders have such incredible knowledge that I said, okay, that's fine. And it was a huge relief for me, actually, because it would have been so difficult if I'd tried to work a logical sequence after that. I might have influenced the dowsing so that I found what I thought I should find. And this is no good at all. So that is the end of the slides, and I hope it's given some sort of idea. This is only a few of the things that we've done, but there's absolutely no question in my mind that the Earth is trying to communicate, and it's working through the same close relationships that it used to have with the ancients and its subtle energies. And I think it's communicating in the only language possible with two such disparate species, the language of mathematics. And it's interesting because we did a lot of experiments with the little energy centre in my cottage, and we began to put ancient artefacts on the centre and then find out what sort of reaction the Earth had to the energy of the artefact. And they were all mathematical shapes. And I thought, what happens if I put a mathematical shape on the centre? And I put a drawing of quite an accurate drawing actually, of one of the major crop circles with about, I don't know, 400 and something circles, very precise. And it came out with a completely organic shape on the manifestation. So there is some form of communication. And I believe that something special is going to happen over the next decade. I think a new form of direct communication between people is evolving, which will transcend language difficulties. It's already here in a small way amongst pairs and groups of people who are working closely together on projects where they have a mutual enthusiasm. You've probably found it yourselves that you know who's on the telephone, or you suddenly both start talking about the same thing, and it has transmitted directly. This will eventually lead to a requirement for more honesty and openness, which will inevitably trigger fundamental changes in the political and the financial and the business and the communications. And I refer particularly to Rupert Murdoch and these things, and the military arenas. We simply will know, without question, that people are not telling the truth. So in order for such a system of human communication without language to work, we need to release some of our current limitations. This year in New Zealand, we met 3 people who communicate in this way with members of their family as a matter of course. One of them was that talented Maori girl who did the ceremony in Castle Hill, and from whom that beautiful manifestation appeared. Now she was one of a family of about 7, and she was the middle one, and she was born with light hair. She has massively dark hair now. And she was ostracised because of that, and she spoke to her father without words, and still does. And we met two or three other people, and when we started talking about it, we met 2 or 3 other people who did the same thing. I mean, the Aborigine in Australia have been talking to each other for generations before we arrived, using the energy of trees to connect with friends miles away across the scrubland. And when we arrived and we saw them hugging trees and talking, we said they were mad. But they were very, very sophisticated. They were communicating with their friends using the tree's energy, and their friends were by another tree, and they're communicating that way. In fact, we went to a number of Maori museums, and I just got some photographs back this morning from the Puke Ariki Museum in New Plymouth on North Island. And I just had to include it here. I photographed some of these sayings because I'm so incredibly moved by them. It says, our old people had a saying, if I'm comfortable with where I am in the present and confident with where I will be in the future, it's only because I'm standing on the shoulders of the past. At this point, our journey, at this time here with us, our journey moves into the future where our children and our children's children will be the creators of a new destiny. It's moving stuff. We can certainly learn a great deal from the teachings of the old people. But we also have the capacity to have a profound influence on our future. And I applaud all the work that's been done with digging into the past and finding out reasons why we are as we are. But I think we have to take it from here and start having a level playing field and sort out our future. I love the words of Edward Elgar, and he said, "We are the music makers, we are the makers of our dreams." Will you bear with me, I don't know what time it is, but will you bear with me one moment more when I ask you to simply acknowledge this little manifestation in the earth in your own way. There's nothing po-faced about it. You can just say, "Hi, nice to see you, glad to know you're there," or you can spend just a minute meditating and trying to communicate with this little energy center, and we'll see what happens. It doesn't take long because they are very, very sensitive to what we're doing. What happens is normally that the number of radials increases because it throws out radials to other energy centers. Says, "Look, fellas, there's some people beginning to understand us." 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. It had 10 radials when we came in. It has 18 radials now. It's now almost twice as powerful as it was. Every time I do that, the hair stands on the back of my neck, because I think the implications of what's happening here with our consciousness on the earth field is awesome. Thank you very much. Sorry?
Any connection with healing?
Oh, huge relation to healing. Yes. I mean, dowsing is its use in interpretation and healing and all that sort of thing. And also, if you can find the energy center, if you have a healing place or a place where you normally heal, or you put a chair where you heal somebody, you'll probably find it intuitive. You've put it on the energy center, and if you haven't, an energy center will build up. Because it's not just earth energy, it's communication through the cosmos to the whole connection with the ultimate creator. We are not alone. We are totally connected. And when you start connecting with healing, you're actually using that sort of energy, not earth energy, but galactic energy as well, if you like, or cosmic energy is better. Yes, it's very much related to healing, and particularly dowsing. You can do all sorts of things, finding out whether people's aura is strong or weak or whatever, because your aura is the bit nearest, the first one, is the indicator of whether you are healthy. If you've got a sore shoulder, your aura comes in and you practically not feel it at all. It's an indicator. It can be an indicator that something is going to happen or something has happened. So it can be preventative as well. And the nice thing is that if you get into that way of healing and build up the energy, you can actually... Do you know Kirlian photography? Well, you have the energy. If you half close your eyes and put your fingers against a dark background, you can see a little sandy-coloured thing. And that's the energy coming out of your fingers. And you can actually build up people's energy like a pistol, like a piece of sculpture. And that's quite effective healing as well.
You spoke of Japanese currently trying to create something tangible to protect people.
Yeah, they're trying to do it. So their argument is that if it's if it is a field of some kind, there ought to be some electronic way you can find out about it. But at the moment, they are such subtle energies, subtle energies that are around all of us. And we're not aware of them at all. And they are so subtle that there isn't an instrument that can do it except mind. And they are very keen to do it. I mean, Bill Gates is doing a computer that is going to be intelligent or something. Pardon? Yeah. Yes, but it's not enough. You can get a manifestation of the energy, but you can't do anything with it yet. But hopefully, one will be able to.
Thank you. Quick comment and a question. Several years ago, I was in charge of a laboratory which was outside a very big company. Most unusually, they were actually interested in what they were calling biophotons.
Oh, yes.
Related to this photography
Yes.
phenomenon.
Yes.
There's another debate about that we don't know now. But
Yes.
we were able to register with acceptable and standard scientific instruments.
Yes.
Something that was happening.
Yes.
And there's a good deal of in Germany.
Yeah.
A good deal of theoretical investigation as well as experimental
Yeah.
investigation.
Well, that's interesting because.
Even within what we might call mainstream activity.
Yeah.
That was the comment. My question was that given that your very interesting lecture touched upon a relationship between what we might call the physical and the not obviously physical, but that's
Yeah.
a debate. I'm interested in this difference between New Zealand and Europe in terms of the rapidity of change.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Without, pushing you to tread upon this advice you've been given, not to try to rationalise it, I don't wish to impose on you
Yeah.
to do that. Have you come across any evidence or whatever related to earthquakes?
Yes, I think there's a great deal to do with
I
earthquakes.
was wondering whether after an earthquake, for example, if such an earthquake affects a fault line that might be
Yeah.
your line.
I haven't dowsed a lot after earthquakes. The answer is,
I
but
wonder whether there's any change caused by an earthquake.
not that I've been able to come across. But then I haven't been involved in too many earthquakes and not had the opportunity to douse. I think there's a thing about New Zealand. To me, is it's a very young country. It's only 450 million years old, and that's relatively young, and it's still pulsing and grinding and blowing off steam and sulphurous fumes and all sorts of things. So the energy is still very exciting. And there is another reason that's occurred to me, and I don't know whether it's acceptable or not, but I think Mother Earth, or Papatūānuku as they call her in New Zealand, I think she's still deeply concerned about us as a species, but I think she's getting very, very tired of the Northern Hemisphere and their incessant killing of millions of people. I think she has feelings, and she's trying to break through to people who will listen. This is what this is about. And I think she feels that perhaps the people in the Southern Hemisphere who are not subject to these millions, they have wars, they have 30, 40, 100 people, but not millions of people. And I think she possibly feels that there is more chance of a breaking through in the Southern Hemisphere than there is in the North. But you can accept that or not.
I've read quite familiar about using dowsing for
Sorry, I'll have to come up.
detection of water.
Yes.
Familiar with that. Is there truth in other applications for dowsing? Like, for instance, I've read a snippet about military using dowsing to check certain explosives and mineral specters.
Yes.
Respecting for mineral loads. Is there much truth in that?
Well, I mean, dowsing is not about water. Dowsing is the ability to find things that are beyond our five senses. So in theory, we can find landmines, we can find anything we're looking for, provided we're able to focus on it 100%. And if you're dowsing for landmines, You've got to be 100% right. And I wouldn't dare do that. But we have done some experiments with the dowsers. Sorry, I'll come back here. We have done some experiments with map dowsing for minefields. And there are some people who are, it sounds extraordinary, but there are some people who are very good map dowsers. I'm not that good, but the people who are really good at it, two of them have been in Wales actually. One of them, his wife didn't like him to go away, so he sat at home and he developed the technique of map dowsing to the most extraordinary extent. I mean, he could find things all over the world. And there's another lady who's still there, but she's fairly crippled, and she works from map dowsing, and she works for the police. And she can find drugs, she can find bits of bodies and all that sort of thing with remarkable accuracy, but does it all the time. And when she's successful, of course, she gets no accolade whatsoever, because the police will not admit that they've used a dowser to find a body. But she does. I mean, she's a remarkably accurate lady.
Hello, Hamish. The manifestations, I want to know, they appear and then they change.
Yes.
And is that because is it your attention?
It's my attention, it's not my input.
Your attention?
Yes.
And then the proliferations, the changes?
Yes, the changes are some sort of response. I can't tell you what they are. I just know they exist.
Yeah.
And I haven't got anything to do with them, because I don't know what I'm going to find at any site at all. I have no idea. And this is the only true dowsing, is when you find answers that you didn't think you were going to get.
Yeah.
And then you're completely tuned in. You're working with something that you're not controlling. And that's true dowsing.
Yes.
Yeah. You're not convinced. I know you're not convinced.
It's about causality, but I don't know if that's really appropriate in this
What?
situation. What I'm asking is, if we all go and give attention,
Yes.
then it changes in response.
Yes, I'm not unique.
No.
It's any one of us can do it.
Yeah.
The thing is that if you want to douse it, it's like playing the piano. I mean, once you start, you introduce somebody to a piano who's never seen it before, and within a few minutes they can pick up chopsticks, and within an hour or two they can play chords and perhaps get some. But if they're going to play Rachmaninoff, they have got to practice. And with dowsing, it's exactly the same. It's taken me 24 years to get to this stage, but it's just incredibly rewarding.
I come to this with no prior knowledge at all. Dowsing, we all know dowsing for water, I think,
Yeah.
except of course that it works. But how do you approach that? If you say concentration, do you have a picture in your mind of
Yes.
something on which you concentrate? What
Yes.
is that? Is it
The picture to me of an energy line is a sort of energetic river, which is made up of lots of different bands. And it's very difficult to know now after all this number of years, but it took me, I think it was between 3 and 4 years to tune into the Michael band of energy sufficiently to be able to pick it up blindfolded in the back of a van. And you develop a sensitivity to it that it's very difficult to explain. You just become aware of Bar does it in a slightly different way, because she when we started working on the Son of the Serpent, I was doing both Mary and Michael, and the shift over from one set of energy frequencies to the other was very tiring. And when we started doing the Apollo and Athena, I thought it would be much easier if I do Athena and Bar does Apollo. And she went and sat where she knew Apollo was. This was at Gurnard's Head. And sat there with her shoes off and sitting on the ground and got absolutely nothing for about an hour. And then she became aware of it's not a sound even, it's just something she felt through her bones. And she became aware that it was the frequencies, or the band of frequencies of the Apollo energy line. And then we tested it out. I mean, a few weeks later, we went to Ireland. I was sitting in the back of the car, And we were driving along there on one of these roads where you can't see anything, like a Cornish hedge. And she said, it's coming close, it's coming close. And I was sitting in the back of the car and said, no, it can't be, you're quite wrong. You haven't got it. And we stopped the car and I went out and checked. It was there. And it actually had bent round to go through an ancient site, a cyst grade. And it was precisely where, so she can actually, could tune into that energy. We use it all the time going down through Europe.
So I guess my question goes on to, where do you start?
Where do you start? You get a dowsing rod and say, show me where the earth energy is, show me if there's an earth energy line between this one and somewhere else. And if you concentrate enough, and if your visualization is clear enough and focused enough, you can see whether there is a connection. Now, of course, I'll find there isn't one. Yes, there's one there. So somewhere coming through here, and then you start asking, how wide is it? Give me the outside edge. Give me the centre. Give me the other edge. And it's that wide. How many lines has it got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's got 5 little lines. What direction do they go in? 1 to that way. 1 that way. Centre one that way. So you start asking all these questions, and this thing tells you. You only have to ask.
This is the last question.
I have a very strong energy line going in angles through my house.
Yes.
When I first went in the house, it was very uncomfortable. I didn't sleep for 3 months. I actually thought it was going to be across the head of the bed, but it goes at an angle and I move the bed. It's always there. I have asked for it to be diffused into the earth and to go over the house if need be, but not to intrude. It's taken me 14 months to get flowers to live in the house. I could be given a bunch of flowers and the next day they're over.
Oh.
And I've worked, I've done healing on this energy line, and it is changing. But I don't know whether can I, because it goes through my house.
There's a very simple answer to this one, actually, and it's a question of asking. The thing is that there are many thousands of people with an energy line going through the house. The energy line is made up of probably 20 or 30 different frequencies, and one of these frequencies you're uncomfortable with. And what happens when that's the case is that you compensate for your discomfort by using your own energy, and that depletes you, and you tend to get tired and sick and possibly ill. But what happens is every time you go through that line, you get your little frisson of energy loss. So all you have to do is, because the management know all about, they know what effect it has, but they don't know it's affecting you. So you have to ask the management to change the energy so that it's healing energy for you, so that it doesn't affect anybody else or any other living being. And they can do that. They've got a huge sense of humour. They'll just say, whoops, sorry. And
but it's been a slow process.
Yeah.
And it goes through my house and
Yeah.
to graveyard and goes towards church.
Yes. Well, it may not affect anybody else.
My mission is to deal with it.
Yeah. Oh, it's open for you to deal with. Just ask the management. Yes, you can't change it, because you might change it to something that will harm something else. They can change it. They are enormously patient with us.
Right, they're not working hard enough. I'm talking
And on that note, joining in thanking